welcome the session on Balance the Mix, why empowering women in music amplifies brands. Here is Becky.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. My name is Becky Wixon. I am the head of talent at Song Trader, and I'm also a music producer and a sonic strategist. And I'm joined by two incredible music industry change makers. On my left, we have Ivor Horne, the executive director of the Music Producers Guild, and also the board and senate at the Ivor's Academy. And she is also the founder of We Are the Unheard, an organization which strives for equality in the music industry, developing underrepresented talent in music production and songwriting. Let's give her a round of applause. And I'm also joined by Kamalagharan, the co-founder and creative director of Maison, Mercury, the UK's first and only trans, queer and person of colour-led music branding agency, which collaborates exclusively with artists and composers from underrepresented backgrounds. And they are also the co-founder of the legendary choir, the London Contemporary Voices, and also the Trans Voices. Let's give them a round of applause. So today we are discussing why empowering women in music amplifies brands and can lead to more powerful and authentic storytelling. And this is part of the Balance the Mix initiative by Song Trader, where I work, which is a mission to reshape the landscape of diversity in the music industry. And the definition of balancing the mix in music production means that each element of a song is contributing without dominating or getting lost. And this is our hope and our vision for the creative industries as a whole, to level the playing field when it comes to diversity. But we're not there yet. And I'm about to throw some stats at you as to why balancing the mix is so important for women in the music industry. And it's not good, so strap yourselves in. So currently, the gender divide across all regions of the music industry is roughly 70% men to 30% women. Broken down further, there's less than 22% female artists, less than 13% female songwriters, and shockingly, less than 3% female music producers. Last year, only 1 in 6 composers and songwriters who received a royalty were women. Last summer, only 1 in 10 headliners at UK festivals were women. Grammy nominees over a 10-year span were less than 14% women compared to 86% men. And at the start of this year, the UK Parliament published a report they titled Misogyny in Music. They got rejected. Eve actually contributed to this report, and it was a review of the music industry, which they stated was still a boys' club, with limitations in opportunity, lack of support, gender discrimination, sexual harassment, and unequal pay, calling for urgent action to tackle what they called an endemic of misogyny. So we have quite a lot of catching up to do, and it's quite clear why it is important for us to balance the mix. So to begin, I'd like to ask you why you think the music industry is in this place. Why have we landed in this unequal position? And why are there issues of representation in the creative industries?
So personally, I think the issue with the music industry is because it's not regulated. It's been a massive issue. I personally gave evidence for the Misogyny Music Report as well as thousands of other women. It's been run by white men for so long, and everything that they have done has been allowed because there's been no regulation. We're only now seeing the introduction of CISA that will hopefully stop that, which is the Creative Industries Independent Standards Authority. I think that because of not just the way record labels have been run, but it fans out into everything. So music production, there's always been white men in studios. There's always been, you know, male managers. You know, tour managers, always been men. You know, it's very rare that you find women in any of these roles. So it goes from trade organisations, labels, tech, in front of the stage, behind the stage. It's everywhere. And no one has done anything about it. And every time someone has tried to do something about it, they've been shut down, because the music industry, as we also know, is, you know, who you know. So a lot of the time when people have reported, I did a thing with Be The Change with TuneCore recently, and their report said 76% of women that had reported sexual harassment or had been sexually harassed had not reported it because they were too scared to. So a lot of it is worrying about their jobs, worrying about their careers, family life, everything else. And there's just issues everywhere that have made this massive issue that we're facing today such a big problem.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think picking up on the sexual harassment element, I don't think I know any or many women in music who haven't experienced sexual harassment. And that is outrageous to me. And very clearly one of the main barriers as to why people are put off from entering the industry. If you look at graduations from institutions, you can see that actually things are considerably more balanced there. So what happens to those people? Why don't they enter the industry? One of them, of course, is the boys' club that's mentioned in the report and that you touched on as well, that it's who you know. The other is the sexual harassment issue, that once you are in that space, how safe do you really feel? And if you're entering a space where you are significantly othered or minoritized or sexualized, it gets harder and harder to stay in that position, especially when you don't feel like you're progressing. I think also I would say that, oh, I've lost my train of thought. It's gone. ADHD. Yeah, I think I wanted to also pick up on the history that we're coming from here, that these numbers, you'd think that they've changed in the last 20, 30, 40 years. I spoke to Suzanne Ciani, who's an incredible composer, who was coming up in the 70s, and she said, the picture has not changed in the way that she thought it was going to. The conversation we were having earlier was very similar. Some 20 years ago, you started on this, path, and the numbers have not changed enough. And that tells us quite a lot about the power structure. So even if we have more female producers, who is it that's engaging them? If those people are still in power, then and they decide not to engage female producers, then they don't get engaged, and that's that. I think it's also worth mentioning that there are some very misogynistic, prevailing, deeply ingrained attitudes that are based in misinformation and disinformation about, left side of the brain, right side of the brain, female brain, male brain, all of that kind of crap that we've heard in many other industries, which has long since been debunked, but yet is very prevalent. So you often get situations where if you ask, well, why not? You will get the answer of, oh, we can't take the risk, or women aren't as well suited to those roles. And whether or not that's verbalized, that is, I believe, a lot of the thinking that sits behind. I will also say that I carry a particular privilege, and I do consider it to be a weird form of privilege. As a trans woman, I grew up as a man, and so I have been in those conversations with men from the industry, and I know the type of things that they say when women aren't in the room. And so having gone through that transition, I've had a real insight into both sides of that experience. And I think that is also a valuable thing to be able to bring. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
I actually think we should give them a round of applause. That's so inspiring. So we're here today at Mad Fest, marketing and disruption, and you talked about risk there and taking risk. And a lot of people in this crowd are marketers, creatives, and advertisers and brands have a powerful ability to shape culture through campaigns, through brand communications, with the stories that they tell. And there's value to stories which meaningfully celebrate and reflect the real world around us. And it's been proven that brands that they can make more impact and better connect with audiences when they authentically stand up for social issues and highlight DEI in their advertising. And when it comes to music, we know how influential it can be in shaping campaigns because music can help brands to amplify their stories through emotion. So in the context of diversity in the music industry and supporting women in particular, why is choosing to collaborate with a female artist or producer such a powerful decision for a brand or advertiser?
God, there's so, I mean, God, come on, man. Because we're phenomenal. No. I think, you know, I always go by, and I live by this as well, the whole, you know, be what you see thing, right? So as a woman of colour, from a council estate, a gay woman, a single parent, going through my menopause, I don't see many people like me on television or doing things, you know. I'm a singer-songwriter, producer, an engineer, like, where are they? When I was growing up and I, you know, was into music and I really wanted to have a career, I'm like, there was no one for me to, I mean, Missy Elliott was my godsend when she come along. But, you know, I was born in the 70s, so there was just white people on telly. You know, it's the same as, like, when you look at, like, the cigarette branding and how they made everyone start smoking, you know, the importance of the power of branding and advertising is so huge. Like, if an advert can make a human race start smoking and killing themselves, there's something to be said about that. So the power in advertising and branding is so huge. You need to put people in front of young children that are watching them so they have something to aspire to. It's also about diversity. Like, I'm looking in this room and I'm seeing the beautiful faces of every single person that is unique and different. And there's so much beauty in that and what we can learn from each other from a human perspective, which is the main thing that should be running through any type of advertisement, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what we need to communicate, is the beauty of who we are. And the beauty of who we are doesn't sit in one type of person, you know. We're just so much bigger and broader than that in so many senses. Every woman is different, every single person, every neurodiversity, like there's so much range and beauty in all of it that should be captured. And I think brands have such a responsibility to us as humans to allow us to be inspired to be our best selves. And, you know, I said in the room at the other panel, when I looked out and I was like, you can change someone's life by taking a minute and making a better decision. And it really is that simple. Do you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, there's a lot. I'll stop there.
Gosh, I agree with everything you said. I think I would start by flipping the question round. And I'd start by saying, why wouldn't you book a woman to produce your music? So let's start with is there a reason why men would be better at producing music than women? No. Categorically, absolutely not. There are hundreds and thousands of examples of exceptional female producers. So that's not a reason. Let's move that out of the way. If there is no reason, what harm would it do you as a brand to book a female producer? You wouldn't suffer in any way. You wouldn't get any kind of reduction in quality. You wouldn't get any reduction in reach. So why wouldn't you just level out the playing field purely from that perspective? But now when you then zoom out and look at, well, what would it look like if you had more diverse voices in the space? Well, first of all, who are our consumers? Who are the people that you're trying to reach with your advertising? Who buys most of the products that come out in the world? It's women, right? So why are we working only with men to speak to a largely female audience? That doesn't make sense. And we've seen that across, particularly with products that are very specifically targeted towards women that completely misunderstand them. So why wouldn't we do it from that perspective? Then you look at effectiveness. You look at the fact that if you have more diverse teams, then you will produce more challenging, disruptive, interesting work, and it will stand out better. So if you only work with this tiny group of producers, and believe me, in London, in the advertising industry, you're talking probably about something between 10 to 20 people, right? If you only work with those people, everything is going to sound the same. Nothing that you do is going to sound different. If you want it to sound like your brand, bring in some diversity and you're going to get a different perspective instantly. So those are already a lot of reasons. It's just the right thing to do. But if you need more reasons than that, it also makes economic sense as well. And I'll give you a third. That is that increasingly, you need to produce more and more content. And you can show the brilliant creative process. You can show the diversity and the beautiful journey that things have gone on to be made on your socials. Brands can use the actual creation process to further build relationship with their audience through artists and through producers, rather than keeping all of that hidden behind a door and pretending that, you know, this veneer of diversity that we see on screen is all there is. You can show it behind and people will connect with that, and they do. And I've seen that time and time again.
There's a phrase that I love which encapsulates what you're saying there, which is who makes the work shapes the work. And it's the idea that those who curate and produce and direct marketing have a real profound effect on how it's portrayed, because they're ensuring that it's authentic. They're ensuring that that connection is there. And interestingly, you talked about how it's kind of a moral imperative for brands to include DEI, but actually 2 weeks ago at Cannes Lions, UN Women announced something called the Return on Inclusion, which is research-backed proof from Oxford University that investing in inclusion actually directly improves your profits. So it's time. It's such a powerful time for what we're talking about. And I'd like to know why you both think it is so important and so powerful to ensure that diverse people are included in the production process, also behind the scenes.
I mean, it's basically going everything we've just already said. You know, it's really important because there's so much talent out there. I talk about gatekeeping in songwriting. Publishers will only go to the same people that write the same hits because they've written hits before, and it's all about the money. Take it away from that and look at the product, do you know what I mean? And the authenticity of what you're actually getting. You know, I think we're so caught up on running and money and doing this that we're in a creative industry. It needs people to run these industries. These people are the ones with ideas. And by working with a diverse group of people, your ideas are going to be so much better than working in a group of people that are the same as you, or appear the same, or come from the same, you know, background, whether that's middle class or whatever it is. Having the same people in the same room you're at a loss, because you're going to get the same results. If you want, as organizations, to grow your organizations, if you want to, you know, change the world, make change, that's what your job is. You know, advertising is meant to change perspectives, change the world. Like, it's down to you to be able to do that. And that comes from, like Ila's just said, in the companies, as well as the people that you're hiring to do the music. Like, without music, there would be nothing, no film, no advertising, no connection to emotion that enforces change. As humans, we live by emotion. We are, music is frequency. The higher frequency we're on, the more power and empowered we feel, the more change we can make within ourselves and with others. And if we're doing that as a whole, we make even more change for good, okay? So, and that all comes down to frequency and music. And so if you're, making the one decision to hire those people that are going to start this process and make those ads and make those campaigns so much more meaningful and better. And this isn't just for women, it's for men as well. Like, there are so many times when we're talking about this that men do get left out. Men are very emotive too, and they need emotions and they need to be supported. And so it's about us tapping into that emotion and tapping into the beauty of it. And we can't do that if we're not diverse. It's just we can't.
Yes. And I just really want to say, absolutely correct, that none of this is about excluding men from being producers or creatives or musicians. None of it's about that. It's about leveling things out more and balancing the mix. Right. What was the question?
I think you actually kind of answered it before. I think we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm keen to know, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Hello, I'm Victoria Brooks, and I work at an in-house agency at Diageo, and we work with a lot of, obviously, music with our brands. I work for the Progressive Media team, and we're all about diversifying the investment in diverse media across 23 markets. And I'm curious, in other areas we have databases where we can find diverse talent. Within the music industry, are there databases or places or sources that we can look to identify talent when we're in that moment?
We're actually building one at Songtrader.
Go on, yay.
So there doesn't yet, but it's in the works, and it's called Songtrader Talent. And traditionally, I'm sure a lot of you in the industry have searched for music based on music metrics. So you look for the genre or the mood or the instrumentation. And Songtrader Talent changes that by being able to search by human metrics. So you could search for the track that you're looking for, but by a woman who is queer, based in London. And we think this is a really powerful tool to help brands to more authentically tell their stories, because when you're trying to connect with a particular audience, or when you're trying to tell a particular narrative, when it's coming from the person who you're trying to reach, it is so much more powerful. So we're planning on launching that by the end of this year.
Perfect, perfect. I think we have got to call it at that. But please do have a chat with these three incredible people at the end, but obviously just slightly at the back because we're going into our last session. But put your hands together for this incredible panel all about balancing the mix in music.